If you run your own business or work directly with clients, understanding how to sell is one of the most important skills you can develop. In today's episode, Mike, Brook, and Mac break down what effective sales really looks like, from building rapport and listening to customers to identifying decision makers and overcoming objections. They also discuss how confidence, preparation, and genuine communication can help turn everyday conversations into long-term business relationships. All this and more on the Cleveland Real Estate Investor Podcast.
Hi, everybody. Hey, it's Mike, Brook, and our new sidekick, Mac. And we're going to revisit a subject I've talked about in earlier podcasts, but given the fact that we're coming into the spring after a brutal winter in Cleveland, and the legendary Cleveland real estate market, spring market, is about to happen, and we're expecting that there's going to be a surge in house sales, Gulf War or no Gulf War. And also from our contracting business, we're going to start getting a lot of people, calling for estimates. So I want to revisit what sales are, what sales is about. And I'm going to lead off before I go around the horn here with Brook and Mac about saying that one of the most important tools that you have to have in your toolbox is the ability to sell. And that ability to sell is going to impact your personal relationships. It's going to impact what you're making, what kind of job you want to work at, what kind of jobs you want to take, what kind of customers you want to work for or draw into your business. And finally, the most important thing about sales, it's going to get you tapped into what is happening in the market, because the market is constantly changing, evolving, changing. People working remote. So now how does that impact real estate? Well, now they're looking for a house with an office. Is it in the basement? Is it in the attic? Because now they're working from home. 5 years ago, that wasn't happening. So let me go around the horn, starting with you, Brook. When you first started doing estimates for our contracting business and you sold a couple of houses, and what's your general thoughts about what you've learned, in those 10 plus years?
I just remember early on selling our contracting services, I was very mindful that people would probably question me given how young I was. At the time I was like early mid-20s. I mean, that's one, but I just remember I had a lot of anxiety, really like sending out that actual estimate with a number. And it probably happened because I had some bad experiences where a couple of people
started yelling at me. Some called me not so great names. Now you know what being a head coach is like, right?
Yeah. So I look at the ones who were, who called me, who kind of went personal as they're just being an asshole. Like I didn't do anything wrong. But I remember I always kind of took the bad experiences from each estimate and I try to apply it to the next one. And the big thing that really relieved a lot of my anxiety, I always looked at it as what's the problem? What's causing my anxiety in selling? And it's really giving them a number. And I learned that I'm just going to take the example of painting the outside of a house. At the time, I didn't have a whole lot of experience about how long it should take. It took me jobs being a foreman and recognizing, okay, you're painting a decent sized house. It's probably going to be 150, 200 hours. But I remember I would always call you and say, hey, here's what I'm seeing. Here's the profile of the customer. Here's what they want. I'm looking at 200 hours. And you would always say, okay, 200 hours. Okay, it's 12,000. And I would always go back to the customer face to face and say, hey, Mrs. Smith, I'm going to send you a formal estimate. Ballpark now, you're looking at somewhere around like 12,000. And I wanted to gauge their reaction. And that would just help me feel more confident when I would send out that formal estimate on an email. So I just kind of go back to what it was like when I first started out. And I think, you really have to, and I know we talk about this a lot, it is so imperative. You have to know who you're selling to.
Right.
You have to know who the person is. And let's be real, if it's a couple, who's in charge? Is it him? Is it her? Who's making the final?
Or is it a combination?
Yeah. How much do they have to spend? And I'm just using renovation contracting work as an example. Is this something that you want to do, or is this something that the city is making you do? Are you going to sell your house? Is this stuff where it's like, I don't give a shit what the color is. Obviously, I want it to be, I want it to look nice, but I just want to get things scraped and painted.
It's almost like you're an investigative journalist when you're out and selling, with a combination of Sherlock Holmes, where you're observing, you're asking questions, you're gathering information. Funny thing is, it started dawning on me a long time ago. Who's the decision maker in a couple? You have the opportunity to see what the master bedroom looks like. It's decorated in a feminine kind of motif. She's the one who's the decision maker. Is it Mr. Inside, Mr. Outside? Mrs. Inside is, everything has got that kind of a little bit of a feminine touch. If it's a joint decision, then the master bedroom is usually neutral. It's not pink. Also, being Sherlock Holmes, you're walking up to the house. How's the house being maintained? Is the grass meticulously cut?
Mm-hmm.
Is it weeding? Or is it just kind of and then you walk in the house, it's, the outside's kind of a dump. The inside's kind of a dump. Now, what is that telling you? Well, initially, from my experience, it may be telling me that these people are just so consumed with their jobs that taking care of their house is secondary. And if they're both working, and making money, they would love to just hand this off to somebody, a contractor. And this is where you have to be a concierge, not a contractor. Because now you have the opportunity to sell them on the ability, like, I'm your one-stop shop contractor. And, and I'm not necessarily here for you to, a lot of times they're just overwhelmed and say, the city's on my back. I got to do X, Y, and Z. Well, when you tell them, we'll meet with the city. We'll figure out what they want. We'll put together a plan over 2 years where you're going to do X, Y, Z. We'll take care of your house. We'll come in, we'll check the gutters, we'll check this, we'll check the HVAC. I mean, what level of service do you want? Now, I can assure you, no contractor is doing that, because most contractors are reactive. They're not proactive. They're reactive because they are coming in, they're saying, what do you want me to look at? As opposed to, who are you? What makes you tick? Now, I'm not asking that, but before you drop the number on them, that fruit better be ready to fall off the tree, because you've already spent time gathering information with them. You're listening. What's important to you? You're asking them questions. You're writing. You're not only asking questions, you're asking follow-up questions. You're writing. You're taking notes. You are actually listening to them. And I could probably bet that the people that yelled at you were more frustrated. I made some time to meet somebody from Riley Painting and Contract. I get this kid, Brook, come in here, and, he's just kind of phoning it in. He's not asking me questions. He's not trying to figure it out. And that's usually that it's not that they're an asshole. It's more that they're frustrated. Now, I don't know. Trust me, there are people early on.
A couple of them were just.
They're assholes. But let me tell you, here's a little trick. If you detect you're in the presence of a real dick asshole, you don't give them the number in person. You send it to them. Spare yourself the confrontation where you're getting yelled at. They're not answering your questions. Hey, I just want to get an estimate. I mean, they're screaming at you. I'm not going to make time to tell you what I need. That's usually a sign of a dead end. And you want to cut your losses. Stop asking questions because they're not answering them. Right? Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll send you a ballpark. But we at Riley Painting and Contracting, and for you small business is here, we are constantly trying to filter out the assholes by asking them questions before we even go out and volunteer our time where we're not getting paid.
Yeah, I mean, I think, early on in my sales experience, and I'm still learning, not all of them can be lumped into one category, but I think for the ones who were genuine and who did get upset and irritated with me at the time, and this was, 8-10 years ago, was I wasn't listening. And when I would send them a quote, they'd be like, hey, yeah, but I don't want this done. I told you I need this done. I want that done. And I was like, oh, okay. So right off the bat, they know, okay, I got to watch this guy and I got to watch his crew. So it's like they already have that bad taste.
Yeah, that's why they're mad. Yeah.
Like I went through that. And that's why it's always it can be fun dealing with contractors personally, like for my own house. It's just fascinating to see how some of these other companies, how they operate.
And that's a great point. Without cutting you off, Brook, because you've raised a couple of really interesting points. Most guys who have their own businesses, contracting business, they do the work themselves for everything. So they have no idea what it's like to be on the customer end, where you're waiting around for a guy to show up and he forgot to show up. You made time to leave work, drop the kids off, at your in-laws or whatever, and they don't show up and they don't even have the courtesy to call. Or when they come in, maybe they exuded the same attitude that you exuded 10 years ago when you were starting out. Well, why does Mike want me out here doing these estimates? I don't want to do this. Can you imagine your body language exuding that? Right?
Yeah.
Or, it's not like you're curious. It's like, fuck this. I can't wait for this to be over.
Or
This is like going in for a root canal.
I had an experience over the summer where I hired a company to do some work on my house, and the guy who showed up, super nice, but he just would not shut up.
Yeah.
He was just talking. He was telling me about this, telling me about that. Finally,
tell him about his marriage, and he might
everything,
therapy.
And finally, I said, "Hey, man, you know what? I got to go."
Right. Well, you know what? The other thing I was talking about jumping in was I love selling to a salesman.
Mm-hmm.
Just when I hear, the best estimates I can remember were these guys were sales reps. They are the greatest people on the planet, the sales reps. They sell they rep a bunch of different products. And when you are in the presence of another great salesman, the first thing you notice is they're kind of watching how you're selling. It's kind of like a pro golfer playing for the first time with another pro golfer they've seen on TV or whatever. This guy's got some game. Let's see how he hits this shot. whatever. And I'll never forget, I was doing an estimate a long time ago, and it's the salesman husband and the wife. And we're sitting down, and I'm looking at the guy, and I'm about to close his wife. And he was smiling. He knew what was coming. Here comes the close. And I said, and I'm looking at him as I'm talking to his wife. So, Mrs. Jones, can we start on Monday or Tuesday? That's the assumptive close. Like, it's a given we got the job, right? And you know what the husband said? He said, honey, he's closing you.
What did she say?
Oh, she was like, what? What? I'm sure he's come home for years telling him about this great sale that he made, how he rescued it from the fire. This guy didn't want to hire me, but I came in and we made a deal and everybody's happy. I mean, he's just, it's just like he just got a hole in one. And he's telling his wife's like, yeah, okay, whatever, And so selling to other salesmen, like when I go out and buying a car, leasing a car, I always tell them, look, I'm a salesman. I'm going to make this easy for you. Because a lot of times, maybe get some new guy, whatever. Look, I don't want to waste your time. You don't have to say, I'm going to go talk to my manager, bullshit, whatever. I'm not going to knock you down on price. What do you need to make? Here's the cost of the car. What do you need to make? I don't know if I'm going to buy or lease. Because most of the time, car people, they make their money on the financing. They don't make the money on the car. The real money's on the financing. So you already know how they're making money. So let's all be fair to each other here. I'm going to give you a sale.
Yeah, it's always fun interacting as a salesperson with other salespeople. And like, I remember when we went through an experience getting a car for an employee, this was like a year ago, and it was just a total shit show. Because it was he was probably like 24.
Was it a Subaru or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was
Travis' car?
Yeah. And it was just a nightmare.
Yeah.
They forgot all this stuff. They screwed up the paperwork. And finally, like, it got bumped up to like the head person at the dealership. And he knew exactly what to do and what to say.
Yeah.
And he basically said, you shouldn't have to be going through this. And they comped us a bunch of stuff. And it was
saved a customer.
Yeah.
They don't want you pissing outside the tent.
Yeah.
I remember this way before your time in the late 80s. I never really appreciated the art of selling until I went to a sales seminar. Some 60-year-old lady who was like Obi-Wan Kenobi. And she was unbelievable. She kept saying, Mike, just shut up, will you? Just start asking questions. Be curious. Yeah, you want to make a friend, but you don't want to come off as artificial. And I wasn't being artificial. I just really like meeting people. But she says, you got to be more specific on your questions. So she was really giving me some great training. And then I remember going out to some jobs where the customer was upset with the foreman. And I remember we had this woman foreman, Denise, and I remember going out to, actually, it's a house on where I live on now, on Devonshire. I'm not going to name the name, but they since moved and, husband died. And this is like 30 years ago. So it's kind of ironic. I'm looking at this yellow house on my street now. But I remember going out there and she was fit to be tied. And I sat down with her. And as soon as she started opening her mouth, it became obvious that my foreman was not listening to her. And that's when I started coining the phrase, foreman, the customer is not the foreman. Customer is not the foreman. Think about that. Greyhound, leave the driving to us. I'll get you there. I'm the jungle guide. Don't ask him for a broom, right? Don't share a lot of stuff. Show up on time at 8. If they're starting to point out stuff, hey, are you guys going to clean up? What does that tell you? She's now the foreman. And if she has to keep doing that a couple of times, it's like a realtor. I have to keep telling you to lower the price because this isn't selling? I got to tell you that maybe the customers are complaining because the house looks dirty. I mean, I got to ask you to tell me that. Whenever the customer is the foreman, your price drops. You know, you gave a price of $12,000. Somebody, you know, Skippy, in his own college painting company comes in and maybe undercuts you by $3,000. It's $9,000. Now they got what am I getting for $3,000 more? It's kind of like a car. I know if I buy a Toyota Corolla, it's going to be a good car. It's not going to be an Audi, right?
Right.
An Audi A6, right? You get an Audi.
You expect
the
Audi dealership, the car to justify the price.
Right. And when I come in and for an estimate, and this happens all the time, I'm asking questions, and they're saying, this is where I want to be. I want to clean up my house, but I don't want to spend a fortune. And then we were just talking about it. I had a customer a couple months ago, and they lived in the house for 30 years. They want to enjoy their house. They want to stay, and they want to redo the kitchen. They're thinking this kitchen's going to be $10,000. And I walk in there and I said, you don't need to replace the cabinets. Cabinets look great. And they said, yeah, we think so too. But everybody's telling me we got to blow up the kitchen. Every other contractor is saying that. You don't have to change the cabinets. And you know what? These counters are fine. We'll just paint the counters. Oh, you can paint the counters?
Yeah, that's the other thing too. Another big thing that helps you out in sales situations is when you tell a customer you do not need to do a service that we offer.
Right.
Because when you say stuff like that, you are being 100% honest.
Yeah.
And they look at you and be like, oh, wow, he's like, I can trust what he's telling me.
Well, the irony of it is I gave them an estimate for a whole bunch of stuff throughout the house, plus the kitchen upgrade. That was $9,000. And guess what? In their minds, they probably had a budget of $20,000 because I want to do the kitchen and I want to do a bunch of other stuff. Now they're playing with house money. And now they're seeing real value in hiring our company. Real value, because that value is we're going to offer solutions that they didn't even know existed. Paint the counters? Really? Yeah. Nothing wrong with these counters, except it kind of looks tired. Right? And let's wash the windows. The windows are filthy. Here, when we're here, I'm going to wash this kitchen window before, after, and then you tell me how that's going to look in the rest of the house. Now you give them a little Mrs. Fields, taste of the cookie.
Yeah.
So coming in there and being able to do some broken field running, it's almost like option blocking. Let me use my football analogy. The great teams of Lombardi with the Packers, way before you were born, he designed his offense around option blocking, the great Green Bay sweep. That sweep could be run 10 different ways. If the tight end goes here, we block him here. If the defensive end goes here, we block him here. So you are always running to daylight. You have the flexibility as option blockers. And so when you're in a sales situation, you come in there and you're listening to what they're saying. You're asking questions. It's almost like you're going up to the line of scrimmage as a quarterback, like Peyton Manning, and you're reading the defense. What play is going to work here? Without being manipulative. Because at the end of the day, sales should not be a 4-letter word. It's about building a customer for life. And that is what the car guy, the manager, understood. Or the manager of a restaurant. You know what? He's new. I feel you. I understand you.
Yeah.
Dessert's on us. Let me buy you a drink.
Yeah.
People respond when they are being listened to. And that is at the core of what sales is about. That's why they say the famous sales adage. You've heard this, Mac. God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. They taught you that at Rocket, right?
Yeah.
What'd you learn at Rocket? Let's get over to Mac. We're kind of running out of breath here.
Hey, let's stop here. We got to pay some bills. 30 seconds, and we'll be back. If you've been listening to this podcast, then you understand or should understand the pitfalls of investing in Cleveland real estate. Say you're looking for an investment property to rent, and these are the things that could happen and often do. You overpay for a house, and it's in the ghetto. Then you find that it's a money pit with endless surprise repairs. Your hapless property manager, who may be the brother-in-law of the realtor, gets a tenant who after 3 months stops paying the rent. Then the toilet explodes, and you have nobody to repair it because, guess what? The property manager is not answering the phone. Yep, that's the ugly side of the Cleveland real estate market. But we have a solution. Buy one of our properties. It's been inspected. It's been vetted. It's in a rock-solid part of town. It comes with a Gold Star tenant paying top dollar rent, and we manage it. Call us at 216-371-8160 if you're interested.
Yeah, so I mean, kind of like I've done about 2 years of sales, and at first I was pretty bad at it.
Why were you bad? Looking back. Brooks already said why he was bad. He was petrified of getting yelled at.
Because I think the main thing is just a confidence issue. Like when I first started, selling mortgages, refinances, things like that, it's a lot of money, and you're on the phone, the heart's kind of beating fast, and I feel like every homeowner, thinks they know everything about mortgages because they've had one or two throughout their life, and
then you discover they don't.
And then you start to get some experience. You start to know the products you're selling, and for me, that was like a big confidence booster. And once you kind of have confidence, and you're not necessarily like asking for people's permission, you're kind of telling them what they have to do.
Right.
That really helped me, as well as, to your point with the listening. At my old job, we'd call it active listening. So it's just not listening to what they're saying, but exactly like what the important parts are, and using those to build what you're going to sell and how you're going to sell it.
Right.
And also another big thing as well, like if you build enough rapport with somebody and you talk to them, you could almost like isolate their objections ahead of time.
Right.
So like with the whole spouse thing, something that I would do on my sales calls is I would be like, to pull up the credit report for the house, or you ask who's on the mortgage, you find out if they have a spouse or not. And I'm like, I'm just curious, when it comes to this type of stuff, are you usually the decision maker, or is your husband? Kind of like, what's the dynamic there? And if they usually they'd say, oh, well, we do stuff, we usually talk over it together, things along those lines.
Or I suppose if they say, my husband, he's a dick. I'm getting ready for divorce. Don't tell him I called. No, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
That'll spice up those calls, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then she says, how old are you again?
Mm-hmm. But I mean, because an objection I would run into after I'd give somebody the numbers, they're like, I have to run it through my wife. I have to run it through my husband. Then you give it a day for them to talk over it. You call back, somebody else called, they take your business. So just like isolating things like that. So it's like, hey, give me a time when both of you are going to be here together tonight. And then you're not going to get hit with that. We need to talk it over. Like, I can't do this without my spouse, things along those lines.
Well, you could always say, if you've built enough intimacy and in terms of sales, hey, do me a favor. I've spent a lot of time working on this. Let me call you back at 9 because I don't want to lose the commission.
Yeah.
Right? What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
Really. And, you're partnering up. I think one of the things I learned a long time ago, which was very encouraging, people want to give you the sale.
Mm-hmm.
You're just there to, if you're listening to them, if you're understanding with them, how many times in your life do you meet people that actually listen to you? That is rare. So if you're a good listener, if your questions, you're curious, your questions are based on what you just heard, as opposed to rote, where you're just going down a checklist. Mm-hmm. That's what we talk about with our VAs and Melanie. I don't want you to freak out over this. I know you're listening to this, but we want our virtual assistants in the Philippines to feel that confidence you're exuding, Max. So they're not worried about making a mistake. They're trying to help the customer. They're trying to help the company. They're there as a bridge to set up the estimates, set up the appointment.
Yeah, I think Mac brought up a good point. You want to be confident. And I think the one thing I've always been mindful of is, it's like, you don't want to be a mute, but if you really don't have anything important, valuable to say, then just keep your mouth shut.
Yeah, that's hard.
It's hard, but
that's up there. That's when you get into the all pro sales.
But you can always tell, when I'm tag teaming an estimate with another salesman, I always feel when the other salesman is just talking and talking and talking and talking, like you can just feel their anxiety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what it's coming across.
And when you're a customer, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
But if you kind of take a step back and you just keep it simple, and if you don't have anything good to say in the moment, just let them keep talking.
Right. I think you have to walk that fine line between building that sort of make a friend. And I said this in an earlier podcast when I first started out, and this is late 70s. I remember meeting a guy who was a customer, the late Paul Mamelin. He worked with Squires Roofing, which was a real long time, legendary roofing company in Cleveland. And he was retired, and he was sitting, and he liked my kind of gumption and ambition. I'm out there, I'm hustling, trying to get, and he said, Mike, the first thing you got to understand about sales, first thing you do is you make a friend. And how do you make a friend? You're curious. You're asking questions.
You're genuine.
You're finding common ground, right? And maybe you're talking about the Browns. Maybe you're talking about, I went to this school. Oh, I went to this school too. I'm a graduate of Ignatius. Oh, yeah, my son went to Ignatius. You're, without being phony. And, you're always reminding them, hey, so let's get back to what you want here. What is it? But, there's a little bit of edge that's been knocked off, right? It's not fake. You're not going through a checklist. You're mindful of their time. You're asking questions. Sometimes, I say this a lot. Hey, indulge me for a minute. Let me tell you this story. Okay. So, back to you, Mac. I like that active listening and.
Mm-hmm. And I just feel like, if on your initial conversation with the people, if you brand yourself well, the company well, you have good rapport with them, and you show like that confidence in yourself and whatever product you're selling, and like your ability to, do whatever they need you to do. One of my old sales directors, he had a saying called the presentation when it would come to mortgages. He said, it's just a formality, just to show them what the numbers are. He's like, if you're truly a good salesman, and they're already showing those buying signs, you already have the deal.
Right.
And so on my best calls, I started to really understand what he was saying, because like the people, they'd be like, yep, okay, sounds good, perfect. And if you don't have that good first interaction or whatever, or brand yourself well, or have those confidence, that's when they're going to start to dissect your numbers, things along those lines.
Right. So why'd you leave?
For me, it was just that specific job. I just had no work-life balance. I made good money. I liked sales, but I was working 6 to 7 days a week.
Oh, that's bullshit. Yeah.
Just a lot of work, and
you couldn't scale back? You couldn't say, guys, look, it's Monday to Friday.
No.
Really?
No.
Wow.
I couldn't do I like sales, but sometimes I think the sales culture could be a bit much. Like they're always to drive up competition. Like there would be an email with everybody's numbers, and it's like, we're doing this month. It's like there was just never like a break.
Who cares?
It's just never a break.
Yeah.
And so I think like when it comes to doing sales at like a smaller company, I'm sure it's a little different, but for that stuff, for like that culture, I mean, they're the largest lender. Like they know what they're doing there.
Oh yeah, no. And they've got their own, they're probably, you see this all the time, that culture is created. It's all about pumping the numbers, the profit for the person.
Right.
And that's where, again, some of the things you're doing in terms of selling is, do I really want to work for this customer? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do I really want to work here? And then, sometimes like my good friend Jeff W., Johnny, he was working at a small law firm. Great law firm. And maybe they had 25 lawyers or something. And they did primarily family businesses like my business. And that was their specialty, selling them businesses, succession plans, that kind of stuff. And so Jeff was there for a couple of years, and he's told this story many times, very proud of it. And I'm proud of what he did. But he got to a point where he went up to the senior partners and said, you know what, listen, I want to be partner. I've been making it rain here. I've been bringing in, customers and stuff like that. And if I can't be partner here in 6 months, respectfully, I'm leaving. And there were two camps within that law firm. The first camp, the younger guys were outraged. He hasn't been here long enough, blah, blah, blah. And the older partners who started the firm, that's the kind of partnering we want.
Yeah, they probably respected it.
Yeah. That's the kind of, you hear his balls clanking. And so sometimes I think, when you're at Rocket, you simply say, hey, I'm not working 7 days. I'm pumping these numbers. I'm getting my numbers here. I want a life. And that's what Ross Perot, one of the great salesmen of all time, Ross Perot, worked for EDS in the early 60s. Have you heard that story?
No, but my brother works for his Ross Perot Jr.'s company.
Yeah. So talk to Joe. But Ross Perot, his first month in January working for IBM, early 60s, this is when IBM went, you're wearing a gray suit, blue tie, white shirt, everybody dressed the same. He hit his sales quota, in one month, January, for the whole year. And then he went back to them and he said, I want to make more money. If I'm selling more, why am I limited to this quota for the year? I go, well, that's how we do it here. He says, I'm out of here. And he started EDS. And they ran rings around IBM. So sometimes like with sales, when I'm going out selling, my goal is not necessarily to sell every estimate that I'm doing. My goal is I want to sell the right job that's going to be right for our company, that the Eric, Dave, Bob, my foreman can execute, right? The next thing I'm looking for, and this is if you're really good, is market information. what's in the zeitgeist? Is there a little resistance to, are people moving more? Are they refinancing more? Are they're working from home now? So now the house needs an office.
Is there a baby on the way?
Baby on the way. Are they gonna need to baby proof it? Their aging mother-in-law, they're getting older. Do they need, what is going on in the marketplace? So do I want to work for these people? What new marketing things can I use to develop future estimates? There's a lot going on here. And I am astounded that sales is not taught in college. In fact, it's not even taught when you're getting an MBA. You would think that would be not just sales 101, but graduate school sales.
Yep.
Yeah. I learned, from my sales experience, like my old company, they're like known in that industry for the best sales training. So like a lot of other companies will try to poach people that work there because they already have like a good foundation.
It's like drafting linemen from Big Ten schools, Iowa.
Yeah. But I would say just from my 2 years being there, I have a business degree and I've learned more from those 2 years than I did from my 5 years at
Could you
school.
have gotten hired without going to college?
Yeah, you could.
Yeah, good. Yeah, that'd be interesting for those out there who are interested in getting into real estate or interested, really, do you need an MBA? Do you really need a BA, degree to do this? Or maybe the best thing is just, hey, I'm going to school 1 year at Rocket. I'm going to be interning at some real estate company. I'm going to be a small business, restaurant business, just actually work there. Said, hey, just pay me minimum wage. I'll be here. I'm working. I'm going to take notes. I'm going to ask questions instead of going to school. I'll make some money, but also learn on the inside. And you know what? Most owners would love that. They love talking about their business.
Yeah.
I know when I'm at an estimate, I start asking people, so what was it like when you had, what were some of your, it's not even related to what you're there for. And you know what? They love talking about that. Oh, I love being doctor. I love being, and that, that's enjoyable. And I don't really, at the end of the day, what's coming out is I don't really care if we get the sale or not. I just made a friend. And that's not phony. That's genuine. And so you almost like, well, what can we do for you here? Okay, well, maybe, you're not prepared to spend 12 grand on painting the house. How about if we just paint the front this year?
Yeah, and don't be surprised if you don't get the job then. If you're doing all those things, you'll get a call, email out of the blue from that person.
Oh, I had many times when I first, or my earlier years, I'd get a call from somebody. I gave them an estimate. They hired Skippy, the college painter. Mike, I need you out here. We had to fire Skippy. Please finish it up. My bad.
Yeah.
Those are the great jobs. Validation of what you're doing. And of course, there's some jobs where they yell at you and whatever, and then you got to do your, post-game review. What just happened? A little film review. Mac, we got to get you out doing an estimate or two. Get that on video, right, Amari?
Yeah, that could be good.
Yeah.
I could try.
You're a little sales coach.
Yeah.
Maybe have you lecture at John Carroll.
I don't know about.
Hey, why not? Why not? Get in the business class. So, all right, final thoughts, Brook?
No, this is a good topic. I think what you said is really good advice. Listen more, talk less.
Yeah.
But don't be a mute.
Yeah.
But don't be the Applebee's waitress.
Right.
Don't be coming up every, how's it going? It's just, you want to come across as being genuine.
Yeah. And in charge. Customer's not the foreman. Because if you're the Applebee's restaurant Wait, how's the food? 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 Now you're making them the foreman. The customer is now the foreman.
Yeah.
So I think that, yeah. So if you're out there, or if you're looking to hire a realtor, interview them. Find out what their sales ability is, because at the end of the day, you do not want to hire somebody who's not a salesperson. Like Sophie, our person, money. She's a hustler. She's a salesperson. She understands the chain, as opposed to somebody who's just listing your house.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And if you have your own business out there, understand sales. Because if you understand sales, you're going to understand the market. You may own a frozen yogurt store. You may have a yoga studio. You may have this. You may say to yourself, you know what? This isn't working. I need to change careers.
Yep.
So, and if you can sell, you can do anything. Final thoughts, Mac? We'll let you wrap it up.
I'd just say, kind of recapping some main points. Listen, be confident, trust yourself, and at the end of the day, if you don't make a sale, try to make a friend.
Yeah, and learn from it. All right, folks, we'll end on that note. Thanks, Amari.
All right.
Thank you for listening to the Cleveland Real Estate Investor Podcast with Mike Riley. Please add our show or follow us on Spotify, Overcast, Apple Podcast, or Spotify. Leave a like or comment on the video. All engagement is appreciated. Subscribe to us on YouTube as well for video content coming soon. For any Cleveland listeners or Cleveland Browns fans, you can check out our other podcast, Cleveland Browns Anonymous, for our weekly group therapy session. This is also on all the same platforms as the Cleveland Real Estate Investor.